Hi, this is Ed, and welcome back. Today is 9/11, September 11, and this year is, as you know, 2025. So it's 24 years since the U.S. was attacked, World Trade Center and Pentagon and other attacks that were stopped by the brave people of that flight over Pennsylvania before it was going to target the White House or the U.S. Capitol. I'm not sure. Terrible. Ron Cooper is my special guest today. He is just a wonderful guy and clear-headed thinker about trust and about dedication and about helping companies and helping executives communicate the feeling of trust in the workplace and building relationships and helping companies become quote unquote learning organizations. What could be better, especially for today's Gen Z? So we may have a couple of special guests also join us. Not sure of that. It's a very busy day today for a lot of people. So we'll be right back with our broadcast. Welcome again to Global Business News, and this is Global TV. And we're back. This is Ed in San Diego, and in Maryland, on the eastern shore of Maryland, is Ron Cooper again. Thank you, Ron, for being our guest.
Ed, thank you so much. It's always great to be with you and your listeners, and always great opportunity.
Yeah, so today is 9/11, which is um, infamous and heartbreaking and maddening at the same time. And I'm going to allow Ken Lloyd to enter the studio here. And we're going to be talking with Ron Cooper here, as you could see, as our main speaker, thought leader. He has years of experience in running organizations and advising executives on trust, trusting people and creating a learning environment in the workplace. Welcome, Ken Lloyd.
Thank you very much. Nice to see you. Ron, nice to see you as well.
Hey, Ken, always good to be with you, buddy.
Right back
Thank
at
you.
you.
Thank you for making time on this special day today. I know you're quite busy. Ron is all about trust today. So, Ron, what's your headline?
Ed, today I think is a very appropriate day to talk about trust. I'm going to bear with me for maybe 2 or 3 minutes where I go through some type of thought process to hopefully stimulate thinking. But I'm boarding an aircraft. Can I trust the other passengers that they will not attack me, they will not insult me, or otherwise make this a very unenjoyable flight?
Hmm.
I get on a similar aircraft and think, can I trust the passengers that they will not run to the cockpit and attempt to hijack the plane and oh my smokes, holy smokes, run this plane into a high rise building which has several thousand people in it? Can I trust the persons sitting behind me on a subway that if I were to sit down and mind my own business, can I trust people that they won't club me with a club, knife, anything? If I were speaking at university and my intent is to speak in 10, 12 universities across the United States, can I do so without the fear that I might be shot? Ed, those are very recent incidences where people seem to have a total disregard for other people, because the answer to each one of those questions could be no. I can't trust the other people on the flight. I can't trust people in the crowd. I can't trust people on the subway because I don't know that they have any regard for my life, other people's lives. I don't know that that exists. I have to be extremely vigilant in what I do, what I say, because I know some people can be angered to the point of hate, and that hate then manifests itself in various ways. And so some people may think I'm making an ideological statement, but I do not intend to do that. What I do believe is that we can have very differing views on different things, very differing perspectives, and we're ardently believing the way we do, but we can discuss any differences we have without that getting to the point of hate and retribution. I believe it is incumbent on us leaders to instill that in our people, that I am fine in the constitutional perspective. You have a freedom of speech. I would prefer that you not use some language around me, but you still have the freedom of speech to do that. But if you want to carry out some sort of retribution with me because of what I believe, and our laws clearly discriminate or legislate against that, you don't have the right to do what you want to do without there being consequences. And so I know what I'm saying, some people would interpret as a political statement, and it is not my intent to do just that. I know there's some people who believe we could never legislate our way to correct behavior by incarcerating people. However, I am of the belief that there are some actions that, when carried to being totally illegal, violating statutes, that there are consequences for that. And so, Ed and Ken, that's a lot of where I am. I am just, I'm very, very dismayed at the yesterday's incident where Charlie Kirk, whether you believe what he says or not, was shot simply because it seems he advocated a position for which the shooter disagreed. And the shooter, and as we're speaking, I think is still at large, but the shooter apparently thought he or she had the right to do whatever they did because they disagreed with Charlie Kirk. And that is an aspect of behavior that I think we must have a call to action, that we will do whatever we can to engage in conversations with people. I am a believer that when I can carry on an effective conversation with people, I can be aware of, and I'm not a fortune teller by any means, but I believe I can be aware of, appropriately aware of data points that might, just might, cause me to, or inspire me, maybe a better word, inspire me to ask other questions to determine what that person meant by what they said, or the inflection in their voice. If possibly I'm thinking, that just seemed to be a little off color, but I think it's incumbent on us to probe a little bit further to determine what might be the root of what a person is thinking, to where if a person may have some feelings that, I'm angered to the point of hate, and I just feel I've got to terminate some person so that they no longer propagate information for which I do not believe. I'm on a soapbox, so to speak, Ed and Ken, but that's where I am for the moment.
So I want to add that on this day, I know you can't tell, this is a cup. It's become a comfort for me to drink out of this cup today. It's from the National Press Club in Washington. And years ago, when I was very active doing live meetings in Washington, frequently I was a card-carrying member of the National Press Club, and we held all of our Washington meetings at the club, which is a fantastic venue, and everything that it stands for, freedom of the press, uh, in an organized way. And today is one of those days, 9/11, particularly in view of yesterday and potentially, indeed, overreach uh, about law enforcement in many ways recently. And perhaps some of that is required, but perhaps not either. It's not for me to say, but just to keep the conversation going. Our special guest today is Dr. Ken Lloyd, PhD in organizational psychology, organizational development. Ken, what say you about all this?
Well, I certainly agree with what Ron is saying. I'm just so dismayed and disappointed to you. Well, I know Ron said dismayed, I'll add disappointed too. Just in my thoughts, in terms of what's going on, I see these school shootings, see this horrible act yesterday, and just what's going on. It's just, where are we as a people? What's happening? I'm not just here in America, but across the world. What's happened to us? And it's just, it's so sad to see all of this. And I think thoughts like what Ron is mentioning in terms of what can we do somehow as individuals, as a society, to try to prevent some of these horrible actions that are occurring. I agree, communication and understanding. And granted, it's wonderful that people have different opinions. My grandmother used to say, wouldn't it be a boring world if we all were the same? And she's right. But these differences are fine, but to have them reach out, and my differences are so great with yours that one of us has to act violently toward the other, is awful. And I know we're dealing on top of all of this with a mental health crisis, and that there are a lot of people out there that really need a lot more help than what they're getting. And this in no way justifies these horrible actions, but may indeed be playing part of it for people to get to that point. There are no easy answers, as Ron has implied, but certainly if we just sit there and sadly say, oh, isn't it horrible where it's going, it's not enough. And we do have to at least push toward more active engagement between people and between groups, and see if we can come together on more areas. I think, the example would be in our government, where we just simply people need to see that, yeah, we can still operate on a bipartisan basis, even if we vehemently disagree with each other. Let's figure out how we can work and move forward constructively rather than destructively. So I'm just disappointed that we're not at that point, but actions like Ron is talking about, then spread out, will help us, and we need help as a people.
Let me just jump in, Ron, for a second. Yesterday or the day before, an element of this taken to an extreme over the skies of Ukraine and Poland, and who knows where else. We'll just focus on this for a minute rather than Middle East or other places. It's like everything has gotten so tense. It just seems like everything, bad word, everything, but like we're being tested by the Russians. Okay, NATO's being tested. It's actually the U.S. that's being tested. How far can Putin go? He's testing. It's right out of the history books. History is repeating. What are we going to do? Ron, I'm going to stop talking. The
No,
stage is yours.
Ed, again, you're both right on target. I do believe that as long as we can talk we will be able to overcome whatever. And if you are a recalcitrant type person and you're just not willing to listen, it's going to take me longer. But as long as we're able to talk, I believe in myself enough that somehow, some way, we will reach some sort of negotiated settlement. Now, I want to say that I have served 22 years in the Air Force, as we have discussed many times in the past. But I will say that as I discuss the military and others around the world know, we have the offensive potential that we will do whatever we need to do to keep peace, and that is top of the list is deterrence. We do not want to have war. We want to prevent war and we want to have peace. I'm very interested in your perspective on mental health. As I have discussed here, and I won't take this to a long degree, the first 2 decades of my life, I had very poor mental health. It was in the context of negative thinking. I didn't have any confidence and so forth. But it was certainly my mental health was not to the point where I could even entertain the slightest possibility of killing somebody. But I'm very interested in your thinking that can we just through normal conversation, I'm going to use that term normal conversation, discern something that, man, that is very awry, whatever it is you said, that I just want to explore that a little bit further. And I'm asking that question in the context, do you believe we can be aware enough that, oh, that was really an off colored comment. I'll use that term, but I want to probe that a little bit further. And if I believe that, oh wow, that just needs to be investigated a little bit further, again, I've used the expression, I would rather apologize than have to eulogize. I'm the kind of person, and I do know very well my personality is such that it's easier for me than some other people to confront. But I would rather confront and be wrong than not confront and wish I had the courage to say something. Now I'm going to stop talking.
Ken?
Yeah, I think as parents and as friends and as colleagues and as teammates, to be aware of what's going on with those around us, whether in the work context or in the social context or family context. And if people appear to need help, if you can see it, because how many times when these things occurred, do you then hear, oh yes, this person, and then you'll hear they had this problem or they were being difficult with the others or they were loners and we all were suspicious. If people need help, to try it, at least to suggest that they get it. Because that's what a lot of this is, that people are somehow at the point where they're over the brink. And it's not, that help is not yet going to come from AI. They need real personal, human, one-on-one help. And these are people who are in their own way crying for help. Yeah, we've all gotten upset. We've all been stressed. We've all had our doubts about one aspect or another about ourselves, our performance or whatever, but never to the point, as Ron mentioned, of thinking of any kind of violent action or retribution. But there are those out there that feel that. And I'm very concerned about the lack of social interaction among the younger folks who are spending excessive amounts of time on their computers, on their laptops, on their screens, on social media, and getting questionable advice and suggestions as to how to live their lives. I think it makes it easier for them to do things that really wouldn't be done a generation ago. And those kinds of actions that would call for help, just for us to be more aware of that. And if people need it, to really strongly suggest and even speak with those who might know these individuals, to kind of almost have a chorus, if you will, an intervention. Say, hey, this is a time to get some help. But it's okay to disagree. It's good to disagree. I grew up in a home, my dad was a Republican, my mom was a Democrat. And they didn't agree on all that political stuff, but they loved each other and could talk and communicate and influence each other and listen to each other and respect each other. That's what we need to have more of on a much wider basis. It's okay to disagree. We're not going to disagree on every single point, but that's what makes life interesting and that's what makes life relevant. But when it gets to a point where someone appears to be a little bit off the edge, say, you might want to get some professional help to talk your way through this. It just sounds like that would help you. What do you think? And let them go from there. We're not trying to play therapist with them, but let them get some professional help. And I think our government can help in that regard too. We see a lot of folks that are dealing with post PTSD, not necessarily from military service, but from all kinds of prior experiences that they may have had, and to make sure that they're getting the help that they need, because a lot of this appears to be coming from that.
So look at
It-
what happened yesterday at Utah University there. A lot of people, probably church-going people, Utah's a huge population of um, Bible believers, and I worship that. I think that's wonderful. And they all witnessed this terrible killing. What's that mental health impact, Ken?
Oh my God, you could hear the people who were interviewed who were at the rally,
Terrible, awful.
and they all should
Excuse me.
consider getting some help. What they witnessed, what they experienced at a happy, joyous, uplifting event, that this was all so positive, to have that sudden, unbelievable shock that they witnessed. I mean,
Yeah.
even the news media wouldn't show it. It was so awful to see what happened there. Yeah, they will need, in my opinion, to reach out and get some help to process it. Young people that were there, people with young children who were there. It's a nightmare of nightmares, and help will be necessary for them. You can't just. This is not something like, oh, you witnessed some crazy thing that occurred. This is way beyond that, and this was like coming from a true battle scene where you need help. We're not, as humans, conditioned psychologically to see people being murdered, and you need help to process it and to get through it and to at least cope with it, because you're not going to forget it. These people have that now in their brains for life, and we all have incidents that we can remember that were not positive that we might have witnessed, but you need some help to make sure that they're processed properly and you can go on living in a mentally healthy way.
Ken, I'll advance what you just said. My thoughts go to parenting. And we, as observers, may feel that this person is, whoever that person may be, is being influenced by their parents. Now, if I'm a neighbor and I'm observing, wow, this becomes a very difficult situation for me to maybe attempt to engage that person, but yet it may be appropriate for me to do that. And of course, we need to learn to expect, well, hey, why don't you just mind your own business? I'm raising my family, you raise your family, and don't bother talking to me about it. But yet, I'm going to believe, and it appears maybe I'm adversely influenced by some of the media that I have seen. The school shooter at the Minneapolis Catholic school, it's believed that that person had some troubling background, and to what degree the parents might be involved in that, I don't want to be in the court of public opinion. However, I do believe that that may be just one example of many that, well, I understand clearly it'd be very difficult for us to engage that a parent is doing something or and adversely influencing someone, but yet that may be exactly what our observation is. And now we have to learn how to tactfully approach those kind of people.
So we have a toxic situation in some companies and a toxic situation in some homes. And I, I don't have that experiences, thankfully. But when I was in the Army Reserves as a medic, I wasn't in battlefield. I was in hospitals, and I was in a unique a unit, a medical unit, a thoracic surgical unit, and it's run by surgeons from Harvard Medical School. I mean, this is really the top elite at the time. And they befriended me and taught me how to prepare a sterile tray and be in the OR. But my primary function, as it turned out, was people care. Uh, Parents or loved ones or friends bring the patient into the OR emergency room first, and I was there to set things up, organize things, get them settled. That's trauma as as well. Anyway, I'm getting off point here, but the
No,
whole
I don't think
idea.
you are, Ed.
Oh,
That's,
thank you.
we all observe different things from our perspective. And hopefully we can be objective as we assess others with conversation. And that's a part of listening. That's part of the title of what we're talking about here. But if we can effectively listen to people without being judgmental, but let's just say we can accurately assess. Judgmental to me in this context is I'm going to label or stigmatize you, maybe unfairly stereotype you, something like that. But no, I'm hoping I can accurately assess what we're discussing and take that to a logical conclusion. And so, if I am assessing a very toxic environment, as you discussed, Ed, I want to address that. And now it's up to me to determine the right time, the right place, the right attitude, the right tone of voice, everything to hopefully have receptivity to the conversation I hope I can have, such that we can reach a conclusion of something of the greater good. That if there is heightened anxiety to the point that, oh, I just feel like I may be right on the verge of having to take action, I hope I can de escalate that.
We have about 20 minutes remaining here. It could end sooner, but not longer. Um, as I have another broadcast at the top of the hour. But let's go on topic to how, uh, Ron, you can um, create a learning environment inside the company so that the employees feel psychologically safe. And with you as the leader, taking this approach that we've just discussed, caring approach, and trusting, and your previously stated rules of never denigrating anybody and listening, critical listening, uh, and take the lead now, Ron, about how you would coach an executive to set up a learning organization. And Ken, you're an expert at this, so please jump in anytime.
Well, I'll start out, and then certainly I want Ken to join in. But I want to always create an environment, a culture that demonstrates clearly we care. I mean, and that covers a wide expanse. We care. I do care about you at home. I do care about you on the job. I want to make certain you are equipped to do what you want to do. I do hope to advance you by giving you more challenging positions or tasks. And I do want to be that person who equips you, trains you to do that. And over a period of time, as I interact with you and Ken, you will know if I'm sincere about what I say, because if my words and actions are not totally synchronous, you're going to know that I speak one thing and I am not following through with the care that I say I want to project. And so when I say that I care, and I say also that I want for you to be in, I want to create a psychologically safe space, as we've talked about numerous times, That is a matter of, I want you to speak freely, but one of the fundamental values that we represent is we will not denigrate each other. We won't go to social media to do that. I respect your opinion, even if our opinions widely differ. But I will never denigrate you, Ed. And one of the standards of the company that we need to have is that is it. If I ever hear that we denigrate each other, then I want to address that right away. And if the person persists in it, I might have to make a determination of whether that person aligns with the values of our company. But Ken, I'm very interested in your thoughts on this.
Well, I certainly agree with what you're saying. It's interesting, the kind of environment you're talking about is the kind that would absolutely work against the kind of anger and rage and stress that would somehow motivate someone to engage in some sort of violent behavior. There is a crossover to that. The thought of care is so important, and building that context and framework in which there is respect and trust and a focus on employee growth and development, and really truly actively listening to people, not going through the motions, so that when the other person's talking, we're thinking, all right, what do I want to say in response? And not even really listening, but to truly engage with the individuals and let them know that they matter, their lives matter. And as you mentioned, on the job, off the job, and it has to be genuine. I mean, we can have some written pronouncement with all these wonderful words in it and then behave totally differently. It has to be genuine. It's got to be real. And then people, if we want them to feel psychologically safe, it has to truly be a safe environment. Where do you disagree? What are your suggestions? What are your ideas? And there's no retribution. Certainly, if someone is not performing well, there is feedback and development and coaching and guidance, but it's not a matter of I'm sitting there with a stopwatch and you failed and one more time. It's not managing by threat, but by coaching. And look, as Ron said, if someone clearly cannot make it, you've given them every opportunity. You've structured things perfectly for them and with them, jointly establishing goals. And for whatever reason, it's not a great match. Maybe there's a better match for them somewhere else in the organization or somewhere else on this planet. And that has to happen as well. So it's not a matter of simply coddling and pulling people along and saying, no matter what you do, but really working with them and developing them, building their strengths, and letting them feel better about themselves and about what they're doing.
Let me ask each of you, if I were to just scan social media, just scroll real fast through it, and both Ken and Ed, I saw something you posted. Would you be offended if I asked you what you meant by what you posted? Because I read that one way, and I'm very interested in knowing what you meant by that. Would you, let me just ask you, Ken, and then Ed, would you be offended, Ken, if I asked you what you meant by what you posted?
Oh my gosh, offended? No, I would actually be quite happy. Oh my gosh, you read it. It resonated with you. It doesn't have to be positive or negative, but it got you thinking, and now we can talk about it. So no, I would definitely like to hear that. And frankly, I think there's a lot of learning that comes when people disagree. And if someone disagrees with me, one of us is going to learn something if we truly listen. So that's fine. I look at all of that as learning opportunities on both ways. It's a two-way opportunity for both of us. And maybe we both come out a little more edified about whatever it was that was written. So no, I relish that. I think it's great and important. And I'll tell you something funny that happened just related to that. When I used to write a newspaper column early on in the very beginning, I remember I got, if you will, some hate mail. People said, I disagree. This is, how could you say it? And I called the newspaper I was writing for and said, I got some hate mail. And it was so funny. When I talked to the editor, he said, he puts the phone to the side, an old day with phone. Hey guys, Ken got some hate mail. Isn't that great? They feel, oh my God, people are reading and your writing is so moving that it caused them to really reach out. So to me, I love it. You know, want to disagree? Let's have at it. I think we both can learn and grow.
Yeah, you've got
Well,
a great attitude about that, Ken. What's your thought, Ed? If I were to approach you and ask you about what did you mean by that social media post?
Well, it gives me a chance to tell more stories.
Okay. Well, I
So,
would say that both you guys are very open-minded about it. Some people, I believe, would be offended by it, and something to the effect, "Well, I can say whatever I want to say. I've got the freedom to do that." And okay, I'm not here to again denigrate you. Okay. My thought about whatever. I'm totally hypothetical. My thought is that somebody could take that as, is that what you meant by that? And let's talk about it. I think everything can be a learning opportunity. Right on.
so Ken, when you were not only just writing that business help column, um, but when you're in that senior talent role at that company for 18 years, how did you bring people together at that time? That was before social media really took hold, but um, did you have town hall meetings and bringing people together every month? Or?
Well, it wouldn't be every month, because then it turns into a ritual and oh my gosh, here we go again. But certainly as, if you will, as needed, or just, here's something special going on, let's get together so we can talk about it. But my goal would be to certainly bring people together. Sometimes it would just be, we could do it virtually, but most of the time, in those days, we meet, we talk, certainly if there are any disagreements, but for learning opportunities, to putting on educational sessions, as well as just ad hoc get-togethers. We had a lot of, if you will, informal space where people, whether it was at so-called coffee bars or in the break rooms, or even in the hallways that were designed with open office space, so people could talk and see each other and visit, so we could get the human side of work in there as well. And certainly, to me, one of the big focal points was on employee growth and development, to make sure there really are bona fide opportunities for people to grow and to advance and to go ahead at whatever pace they want in their careers. And I loved it when we would be promoting people, or people who wanted to be transferred into other areas. To me, that was gratifying, as in a managerial role, but to see them satisfied and happy and moving on, and certainly encouraging their formal education as well as informal, really, really helped to create the kind of environment, frankly, that Ron was talking about earlier. And if there is toxicity in any aspect of it, to focus not so much by saying, hey, that's really toxic, but let's talk about the behaviors or the actions and what we can do to make the improvement, and not trying to blame or overly criticize, but to really take a developmental kind of approach to deal with the issues that would come out.
And I think, Ken, you're right on target with that. We need to be have the courage to confront without being argumentative or combative, blaming, and so forth. But I just want to have an understanding of what it is. And to repeat, everything can be a learning opportunity. But the person with whom I'm speaking is not going to learn from this if I talk to that person in a condescending way, or if I'm in a blaming way, anything like that. So I've got to have the right temperament, the right tone, and so forth. That okay, you're worth the investment, Ken, to have a conversation with us about this situation. But those are the kind of things we've got to be, and I use the term frequently, appropriately aware, but then also have the courage to address. But again, it's in a learning type of environment, not a blaming type environment.
Can if companies who are based upon the current headlines ordering talent to come back into the work environment at least 4 days a week or 3 days a week, whatever the ruling is, are they reorienting the workspaces so that it's open rather than closed offices?
Oh, I think some are. I think it's just company by company as they try and bring people back. And again, you can see the resistance, you can see the pushback that's coming from a lot of employees. But in this economy where things are now with job creation and all, it's not as if they can automatically just say, oh, no, I'm out of here. But it is creating a lot of stress, a lot of dissatisfaction, It's going to impact turnover. It's going to impact performance. It's going to impact certainly commitment to the organization in every sense. So companies do have to think carefully about it. We evolved into a new era with all of this remote employment, and it's not like a light switch. We can now just flip it back. A lot of people have adjusted and have become very productive working remotely, and it's been quite rewarding to them in every respect. So for a company to simply flip back the switch and say, okay, everybody back in, is a very tricky one that needs very careful consideration, company by company, job by job, department by department, certainly, because it is not going easily or smoothly. It's not well received. Companies have the right to do it. They're the employer, but employees also have the right to do what they feel is best for them and their lives and their careers. And if they think that they can work out a better situation either with the company or elsewhere, that's a decision that they have to make. And there's a lot of that that's going on, even in these times. But I think as the economy improves, there's going to be even more of it.
Would you ban alcohol from business scene social events?
Would I personally? Yes. But that's to me, we can have great events. We don't need to artificially inflate them by serving alcohol. And frankly, on the other side, although I'm not an attorney, don't give legal advice. God forbid if someone at a company event drinks too much and then goes out and has an accident. Company, it is my understanding, not giving legal advice, but just saying it is my understanding that there can be liability to the company there. So not only from the standpoint of let's have genuine communications, and if people are happy, let's be happy. Let's not artificially inflate it with alcohol. And also from the standpoint of preventing negative outcomes that could occur following the event because of the alcohol, as well as during the event. People can say and do things they shouldn't be doing at the workplace. So yeah, not a fan of alcohol in the workplace. That's just my personal opinion. Love to hear what Ron feels about this.
No, I tell you, Ed and Ken, I'm right there with you. Marty and I are non-alcoholic, and those social gatherings we have, as you said, Ken, I do not want to be responsible for anyone driving impaired, because if I served, I'm not going to necessarily be aware of anybody's individual impairment. But I do know that if I do not serve alcohol, I know no one is going to leave there inebriated. And so now beyond that, it's your own personal judgment, but I just don't want to be party to creating an environment where someone can leave inebriated. So I just stay away from it. So I totally agree with you, but I do know that many environments, man, if you don't serve alcohol, this is not a, not meeting the social standards of a social gathering kind of thing. I know that exists among some people.
So we have 10 minutes remaining. Ron, the stage is yours. And let's talk about anything you want to talk about now.
No, I tell you, Ed, the most recent situation, and again, for our listeners, I'm repeating myself a little bit, but we're commemorating 24 years ago what happened in 9/11. We in the United States commemorate that. Thousands of lives were lost. There are school shootings. There are different things that are happening because it appears from my perspective that people's perspectives. Some of it is based on ideological differences. Many times it's a matter of our culture, our upbringing, and so forth. And again, I will say over and over, I do respect differences of opinion, but we have to stop short of retribution. And my views on whatever topics may be very different from your views, but I'm interested in your thoughts and I can learn from your thoughts. But those that might seek retribution, it's incumbent on us, I believe, to be, and again, I'm going to use the term appropriately aware of little comments. I call them data points that just, that's, what did you mean by that? And if we can probe just a little bit further into different things, we can, I think, discern, and again, I do not want to be judgmental, but I do believe we can discern some traits of some people that that may require a little bit more looking into. And I always like to be very upfront with, if I think that something you said should be taken a little bit further, Ed, I'll talk with you about that before I do it. I just want you to know that, and I do know that if I were to say that, well, Ed, we need to investigate what you said a little bit further, that could cause you and I to have a division. I'm talking totally hypothetical now, but I do believe that we need to have the courage to engage people. And I would hope that that would not engage us into a legal, prolonged argument, but rather, okay, to use a very oft expression, I'd rather be safe than sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, well, when talking with people about actions that you might find questionable, just one note that comes to mind for me is to be careful about how often you use the word you. Because when people hear that, they get defensive. Well, when you did this, you were supposed to do that, you. It sounds like they're being scolded, okay? As opposed to saying, help me understand what happened here. Or I see this turned out this way. What can I do, or what can we do to help make this work going forward? In other words, less of the you did this, you did that, you did this. And what happens is people turn off. They just get defensive. They're just going to stop listening, as opposed to focusing on whatever happened and how can we build from it. It's just watch when you're using that word you, so that you're not using it too often, as you're going to just generate the wall, and then they're not going to hear you.
Well, you're right on, Ken. And right away, if I am quote spring loaded to being defensive, I'm looking for your attitude. I'm listening for the tone of your voice. And quite honestly, I may even hope that you do something that justifies my coming back and jumping right back in your face. And I do know that kind of thing exists imminently, frequently, and I use the term frequently. It's keyboard warrior on the social media. Boy, I will one up you, and I don't care what impact it has on you, but I will one up you and becomes faceless, voiceless. I've used that term numerous times. But keyboard warrior, boy, I'll denigrate you, and I don't care what the impact is, and it just escalates on and on beyond that.
So as we come to a close here, this has really been an interesting conversation, stimulating for sure. And I can't wait to listen to it and watch it again. But Ron, in building a learning organization, the company as a learning organization, where people are not just to put there to put in time, but to learn something new, do something different, perhaps better, and then get rewarded for that achievement. Simply said, but a lot of that is not being, I'm not hearing that. I'm not reading that. I do a lot of reading and scanning of publications. And this simple stuff is just not being talked about. Ken talks about it. Paul Falcone talks about it. Stephen Howard talks about it. Others have to be doing something like that. Ron, what do you think?
No, I think a lot of people are not talking about it. And I am long-term oriented, meaning I would like to think 5, 8 years ahead, that I want for you to know, if I'm the company leader, what our objectives are, strategic objectives, my strategy to get to that point, my tactics, and what your role is as I see it, how you can contribute to that, Ken and Ed. I want you to know right up front that I believe in you, and here's your role. And I would hope you can engage with me, and you're all in with your mindset, your attitude. Oh man, I tell you what, Ron, you really care about your company, me, you know exactly where I fit. Yes, I want to be a part of engaging the company to take it where it needs to go, because Ken, I will appropriately reward you. I'm not going to be patronizing to you at all, but I will appropriately recognize your contribution to this. And when you know everything about me is genuine and we are working together toward the greater good, everything is going to work together in the right direction, and we're going to increase retention. We're going to increase profitability, but then your satisfaction, Ken and Ed, working in a company like that, your satisfaction means a lot to me. And so, again, I know that your fulfillment, that's a word I use frequently. I would hope that I can create a culture in my company to where you feel totally fulfilled working in under my leadership. And even that term, I don't want you to think that that term under my leadership is a hierarchical type statement. Yep, I am responsible for, but I don't want you to think that I'm superior to you, person to person.
Thank you, guys. My pet theme, as it's developed during this year in particular, over the summer, strengthening international business relationships. Philip Berry helped me put those words together. And I'm using that, as you noticed in some of the broadcasts. And I think this program, which will be distributed across the world to business people primarily, will go a long way. What do you think, Ron?
I think you're right on target, Ed, and I applaud everything you are doing. Ken, you're an expert in your field, and I think the more we discuss this, and I'm the type of person, man, I want to stimulate thinking because every day can be an opportunity to progress and incorporate greater ideas.
God bless the USA. Thank you.
Right on.
Have a good one.
Take care. Thanks, guys, and be
Thanks,
well.
Ken.